Hello there, everybody. It's me, Garrett Kidney, the co-host of You've Got to Be Kidding Me on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
And I am Liam Jones, my full name, and I'm also a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network as a co-host for You've Got to Be Kidding Me.
We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. We cover all the drama, all the matches, all the Vince Russo nonsense you could ever want in your life.
Have you heard of TNA? I bet you have, but would it be funnier if two people made jokes over it the whole time? Probably.
So if that sounds like fun to you, check it out on this very Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, and Liam will do bits and whatnot.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder Buddies and Travelers down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway, coming to you as part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network and powered by largemanappears.com. I am your host, your big sting son on Thunder Road, Dave Ryan, and I am joined, as I am every week, by my faithful co-host, Stinger Lee Malone. Lee, how are you?
I'm good.
Are you
a little bit sad.
I know. Of the Sting Sons, are you Great American Bash Sting Son or are you Wolfpack Sting Son?
I mean, look, they both have their merits. I think Great American Bash Sting Son looked the part.
Yeah.
But Wolfpack Sting Son did that awesome Stinger Splash. So, you know.
Yeah, he did. God, such air he got on it. And that gear is class.
What, the red and black?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not a fan. I was not a fan of
no, I thought at least maybe it's because it's been so long, you know, in real time since I've seen it, that I was like, that gear's class. What if like, because everybody's saying, you know, including myself, that like Tony should sign them. If they have even an inkling of trying it out, they should sign. He should sign them.
Well, I think one son is too busy with his Dynasty 2 save.
One of them is too fucking jacked for this business, I'll tell you. And I think it is that son, isn't it?
It is that son. He's the gamer son.
Yeah, he's the Destiny 2 player.
Or Destiny 2, what do I say? Dynasty 2 or Destiny 2, whatever the fuck.
He is a big, he is a part of a Destiny 2 online community and is very wholesome in his posting about it. As I told you earlier on, you text me and you're like, I have no idea what Destiny 2 is. And I was like, you'd fucking hate it.
That was the fucking...
Oh, it was in the Discord, yeah.
Discord, yeah.
The Discord. Yeah. It's just generic shooter that you'd be playing it for like 10 minutes and you can go, this was more fun when it was Halo, and never play it again.
Okay, right, fair enough.
Wouldn't be for you now, I'd say. And there's a lot of element of trying to force you to play with people online to it, which I know you and I as grumpy old men don't like talking to people at the best of times.
No.
So it wouldn't be your kind of thing. But what if so if Tony signed them, what if he just called them the Stingsons?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's original names they could come up with.
I mean, like, it'd be a lot better than, did you see the fucking name Brogan Finley has he debuted in NXT last night?
Oh, is this fucking somebody put it in the Slack? It's like Cum Stains McCarthy or something.
It is in fact Cum Stains. Well, you came to that so quickly, it makes me think you went to school with somebody that got that nickname because of very unfortunate incident.
No. Just these are the ideas that go through my head.
These are the things you're constantly thinking of. Cum Stain McCarthy.
This is why we could never have a Deadlock-esque promotion.
It's also why Rich will always be keeping track of what I'm trying to call episodes, because Cum Stain McCarthy would be, if we were out on our own still, this would be a strong contender. Oh yeah, it's in fact, look, it's not far off. It's Uriah Connors. So,
Yeah, so-
cum stain, urethra, uriah.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. I knew it was like UTI or something, yeah.
Yeah, UTI Connors. The problem is that, like, he doesn't even look remotely like Fit Finlay, so they've proper, like, you know what I mean? They changed
Leader's his
Bron
other
Breakker,
son.
but you know what I mean? They've changed Bron Breaker's name, but he looks like Rick Steiner. So
And
you're
sounds
like,
like his
even if you
uncle.
don't call him Steiner, it's obvious he's a Steiner. They've just erased any advantage this guy has in terms of getting over. Like,
Have you actually listened to Breaker cut a promo? It's like Scott is there.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever.
He has the same delivery, everything like.
I'm so out on WWE. I don't think I've ever heard him speak. Nor would I be going to seek. Although everybody's just like, I do love that. Like, the bar is so low now for athletic ability in WWE that every time he hits the ropes, people are gifting it because he hits them quite fast. Which
he
look,
hits them so hard. Yeah.
but it's like, look, it's impressive that he can run. Do you know what I mean? Putting one foot in front of the other in quick succession, it's a fucking medical marvel, I'll tell you.
I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's not something we saw from his father too much after 1997.
Yeah, it's true. Do you think he was like a patient of, the doctor in Arrested Development is like, oh, while you were under, we shortened your calf muscles by 1/2 inch to improve your vertical leap?
I suppose he'd be all right. No. He's all right. He has no left hand.
He's all right. Yeah. Look,
Yeah.
we started off by mentioning him, so we may as well talk about it. This is our first podcast recorded. We kind of, if we had recorded this when we meant to, we wouldn't have been able to give such fresh thoughts on the Sting's retirement match. But without getting too into, I mean, I suppose we can pay a lip service to the rest of the pay-per-view, but let's just tackle Sting head on because, I mean, I think it might be the best last match of all time.
I said it. I'm going to pat myself on the back here. I said it on the pre-show. There was a very good chance it was going to be the best retirement match of all time, and I think it absolutely was.
Because
match,
as I said to you, what was the bar? The bar would have been Taker and Shawn, maybe. In the US, probably.
Yeah, probably.
There's definitely going to be some ones in Japan or Mexico that aren't coming to mind for me.
But it to me, it just blows away Taker. If that's your previous best, it blows away Taker and Shawn.
I saw somebody like unironically saying it wasn't as good as Flair and Shawn, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, come on, have a word.
Flair who could barely move even by that point.
Look, I enjoyed it at the time. It's not as good. It's not even the best retirement match involving Shawn Michaels, let alone best retirement match ever. And that wasn't even Shawn's last match, the Taker match, so that can't actually count in terms of best last match because he came back for his blood money.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, look, the match on Sunday night, it was perfect. It was just everything about it. I didn't watch live. I'd started watching the show and I was beyond tired, so I went to bed and I got up the next morning and my daughter was actually falling asleep in my arms as I started watching the main event, and that video package to start, I was like, oh man, this is gonna get me. And then his entrance with the Suns and Seek and Destroy, I was teary-eyed, and then the finish got me as well. It was just I didn't think it would, but it did. Yeah.
And you know what as well, like the match was just great.
It was.
It was just like all his matches, like we were talking about. So behind the paywall last week over at largemanappears.com on our Patreon, we did a breakdown on TRL of 9 of his kind of most important matches in the AEW run, and one of our big conclusions was that even though yes, there was smoke and mirrors to hide his limitations, this is a man who started in AEW at 61 years old, so like you can't expect, I think when he started, maybe somebody had pie in the sky ideas about him getting a singles match, but the fact that he didn't in hindsight is not really an issue.
I think Tony Khan said it in the press conference afterwards. I think it's 32 matches across 3 years. Obviously 31 in AEW and 1 in Noah.
Yeah.
And that's just like, you don't feel like you missed out on anything with him.
No.
And I genuinely do. I think it was the perfect end, like storybook ending. That moment where he is turning Matt Jackson into the Scorpion Deathlock, and he's telling the crowd, this is it. This is the end of the match, and getting them on their feet.
Yeah.
And then the moment where he lets go of the Scorpion, where it all hits him, that he made it through the match, and you can see the emotion. That's what got me at the end. It was a mess.
And I think Sting was great, obviously. Matt and Nick Jackson, like, you know, I'm a kind of over the formulaic Bucks match, but I think now that it's happened, you can't say that it was a bad choice for final opponents. They were unbelievable.
They were fucking awesome on the night. They just did everything right.
Yeah.
To me, you cannot deny. Like, obviously, people will have their preferences between the Briscoes, and we've talked about this. I don't think you can deny that the Young Bucks are one of the top 2-3 tag teams of all time. For me, I think they're the best. They're the ones I've seen the most. But they played their roles to absolute perfection. Like,
depending on the day, for me, they are at worst the third greatest tag team of all time. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I probably have Briscoes on top, and then depending on how much Motor City Machine Guns I've seen lately is what determines second and third for me, because that's a personal preference kind of thing.
Hang on, Dave. Tell me why you hate the Young Bucks.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, third greatest of all time. Oh, you think they're shit? So
yeah, I mean,
love Bad Faith.
I think where the tag division goes from here is like extremely interesting. Much more. Look, I love Ricky Starks. I love Big Bill. But my God, is the tag division much more interesting now after the past 3 weeks.
But I think they were great for what they were needed to do to be the people, like the title reign to get you to Sting and Derby. Yeah. And I think that act, I don't think they should split up. I think they're way more interesting as Diesel and Shawn than they are as just a standard tag team.
Then Shawn and Sid feuding.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what they do next with them for sure. But this tournament could be fucking all-time great as well.
Let's talk about a man who nearly, as in his own words, tried to die for Sting's last match to get it over. Darby Allin, holy shit. Like, I think a lot of people have been saying it lately because people are kind of looking back on 5 years of AEW and they're thinking about, you know, the forced 4 pillars thing and stuff like that. And, you know, Cody's gone, Punk's gone. We've had a lot of big names come in, a few names leave and things like that. Since day one, it is hard to argue that the 2 most valuable wrestlers in this company have been Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin. They never miss.
I mean, yeah, like it's amazing. Like I've talked about on the Discord plenty of times that I don't think it gets brought up enough just how many kids and adults there were at Wembley dressed as either Orange or Darby or a combination of both. I mean, we were together at the show, and like we said it when we were walking and in the queues, we were like, my God, the amount of kids with the Darby face paint. It's really one of those underreported aspects, and it's something that I think I've long since said, and I know you've agreed with it, like they could go with Darby at any time.
Yep.
And I don't think it would miss. Orange is in a very weird place now. Obviously the Moxley feud kind of was messed for nobody, through no fault of anybody's. And he kind of went back into this kind of damaged champion role. I think it's okay for Orange to step back a little bit for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
But you can heat him back up at any moment. And yeah, they have absolutely been 2 of the top tier players in the first 5 years of this company.
Seeing as they didn't do what I wanted them to do with the TNT title, I wonder if Christian gets through Edge. Do you do an Orange Cassidy feud? The most contemptible heat-getting heel in the company versus one of the most sympathetic
I don't think they need
grassroots.
I don't think they need
No, I don't think they do, but
Orange for now.
I'm saying post double or nothing. Like maybe the summer. That could be that could be the Wembley match.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm just spitballing here. But overall, I thought this is genuinely one of the greatest start to finish pay-per-views I've ever seen in my life. Like one bad match, Deonna and Tony just wasn't happening, and that's all down to shtick, not their abilities. They're just that character has. Tony came into the company and finally felt like she'd kicked on from 3-star Tony and was having great matches, and now even at the start of the gimmick she was still wrestling really well, and now
she's trying to do submission holds and fucking slow 80s wrestling. It's not working. I tell you what did work though, that fucking pop for the OG Tony Storm music.
Yeah. People want her to not be that. Like, people are kind of laughing, and some crowds are popping for Timeless Tony, but that reaction to the old Tony Storm gimmick should tell you
has to be an eye opener.
Yeah. Do the whatever you're doing with Mariah May, get it out of the way quickly, and revert her back to something approximating that character.
The overall pay per view, I echo what you said. It's an all timer. It's. I'm struggling to think. I don't think there is anything better.
I don't want to steal Joe and Rich's thunder, but I literally did have the same, like, over the course of 4 hours on 3 separate times. I was like, well, fucking top that for match of the year, lads.
Yeah.
Because we had, like, Danielson Kingston, fucking incredible match. Fucking then, like, an hour and a half later, Ospreay Takeshita was just like next level.
I'm gonna give Ospreay Takeshita the highest praise I think I can give it. It's on a tier for me with Ospreay Omega in the Dome and Okada Omega, the 2 out of 3 falls match. They're for me they're fucking the elite level, shall we say. And then Ospreay Takeshita matched it right there. Like.
For 1 hour, I had the thought, that is the match of the year, and that is the scariest spot of the year with the Brainbuster in the corner. 1 hour later, I was like, nope, this is better. And Darby Allin almost, like, shredded himself into a fine mince.
I think it'll be an absolute toss-up, and it'll be head over heart or heart over head for what I give my number one to, but if something comes along that tops either of those two matches, it's got to be another fucking incredible year.
Yeah. I gotta say as well, like, for how much he suffered for his art, even though he seems to want to do it every 5 minutes, I swear to God, if I'm not seeing that Darby spot in video packages every 5 minutes forever, like, that's one of those you have to. It's like Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the belts. Like, you need to be showing that forever.
I don't want to be too over the top with my praise here, but looking at the new graphics and the new stage setup and all the noises coming out of the company, I am very, very hopeful that they have realised that what the fans want and what they expect from this company.
Are you hovering over the big red button in your headquarters that says "We're back"?
I don't want to say hovering, but it's there. Like, it's waiting to be pushed, and I'm right. Like, depending on how tonight goes, we should say we're recording this on the Wednesday, so Dynamite is tonight. And I'm expecting at least one person to show up. So it's a real. We're right about there. Yeah.
This week and next week is big business.
Yes, it is.
So this is like the hard reset fortnight period that I'm hyped for. Anyway, shall we time travel back to 1999, buddy?
Let's do it.
It's a big observer this week. Before we talk about the actual show, so the show is dated October 7th, which means we're going to the October 11th edition of the Wrestling Observer. First thing I would say is there's interesting poll results from Unforgiven. Remember we dipped over to SmackDown recently?
Oh, yes.
And we were heading to quite the pay-per-view. In the best match poll, well, the 6-pack challenge won. That's not the controversial thing. I was kind of amazed that there was 7 votes for the Jeff Jarrett China match.
Okay.
That I don't remember being.
Was that the Good
at
Housekeeping
all.
match, or just the basic?
I think this is just the basic. I think next month is Good Housekeeping, because then the
Okay.
month after he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Worst match poll in a fucking landslide. Kendall from Hell.
Yeah.
Also, this was the in terms of important moments in UFC history, before the Zuffa takeover. This was the Frank Shamrock Tito Ortiz pay-per-view.
Okay.
That got 97.7% thumbs up.
Fuck.
Also had Paul Jones and Chuck Liddell in a stinker, apparently, but I haven't really read the MMA section. I think
I don't. Remember
I think
Paul
I will
Jones.
start to dip in a little bit more into the MMA section when stuff like that comes up. That's interesting.
I don't remember Paul Jones.
I don't really either, but like it's just an early Chuck Liddell sighting in the newsletter is worth noting. Okay, interesting week in WCW and WWF history.
This is the week Russo gives notice.
Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira, the men who are responsible for writing the WWF television shows that have been drawing huge ratings for the past year, abruptly quit the company and signed on with WCW over the weekend. Russo, in various interviews, cited the burnout factor of working so many hours, with the added stress of the SmackDown show as the main component of his approaching WCW, first through J.J. Dillon, and then closing the 2-year deal after lengthy meetings with Bill Bush on 10/2, signing the contract in Atlanta the next morning. So this came together really, really quickly. He stated on WrestleLine that he was drained from being on 24-hour call every day for nearly 3 years, and that he needed to spend more time with his family. The move is being lauded as the best possible move for WCW. Ha!
Okay, fair enough.
Because they have writers with proven track records in the world of pro wrestling. Russo and Ferreira were responsible for a lot of the conceptual changes within the WWF, including less emphasis on the in-ring, increased soap opera with an emphasis on raunchiness, and basically aiming the product at teenage boys, a strategy that ended up being a huge hit among not only teenage boys, but younger kids and males in their 20s. How they'll fit into the Turner system, which just days earlier nixed the relatively tame, in comparison to WWF standards, Lenny and Lodi tag team. So the West Hollywood Blondes have been nixed from up top is an interesting to take note of. Because of a decree from Standards and Practices becomes a big question. In addition, WCW skews much older in its demographic, partly because of the older faces on top, even though among the older demographics, WWF has surpassed WCW now. Russo's official title will be the creative supervisor, and he's been given full authority on all matters when it comes to creativity and booking. Exactly what this will mean isn't clear. Russo and Ferreira start officially with the company on 10/11, but since the plans for Halloween and Havoc have already been laid out, no changes are expected until after the next pay-per-view. So they will be in position, but we have their first Nitro in our calendar to talk about.
It's interesting hearing that the description of Russo and Ferreira's writing style, because I actually started listening to a new podcast recently called The History of the 90s.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of, there's some really good, interesting episodes, and I listened to a double header about the movies of the 90s. And they bring up teen comedies and how fucking enormous they were. And it's funny that, Dave mentions there that, Russo directed his TV at, adolescent boys, because that's where a lot of people were throwing their advertising books. Was
is 1999 American Pie? Is that
American Pie?
1999?
Sorry, the double episode. Listen, it wasn't movies and nights. It was movies of 1999, and it was American Pie, American Beauty. No, that was
The Matrix. Was
The
99.
Matrix.
Yeah,
10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, a lot of people often say that in terms of modern times, like the last 50 years or so, 1999 is one of the all-timer movie years.
Yeah, there's actually a book that's referenced throughout it that I really want to get now and read. But yeah, no, it's interesting because a lot of people, like MTV, were heavily pushing towards adolescent boys. And so I can understand why getting a Russo would be seen as a big deal for the success he had. But then you have to also balance that with, well, you know, TBS still won't even show a chair shot on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to come right up to the line but not go past it. Whereas some, I mean, depending on what network you're on, I guess, because you talk about MTV there, like we are probably like 6 to 12 months at worst away from Jackass. Jackass starts in the fall of 2000 on MTV. Yeah, well, now, to be fair, the like the CKY tapes,
CKY was precursor, yeah.
CKY 1 and maybe CKY 2 are already out at this point. CKY 2K was the second one, I think. So that stuff, it's already in the ether, but in terms of like it being mainstreamed on MTV, we're still about a year away from that. So it's interesting culturally what a point we're at, like the height of not only that kind of pivoting to teenage boys, like that whole, I was only talking about this in work recently, is that like, and it's still, I suppose in terms of advertising and things like that, males aged 18 to 35 are considered the ones with the most disposable income. So they're ones you try to market all your shit to because they're statistically the most likely to have the money to spend on it, or to at least spend on it over other things that other people might make different decisions on. So yeah, you're in this cultural moment, and in terms of soap opera stuff, like TV is just getting more outrageous and extreme. Not only you have stuff like Jackass coming, you have stuff like American Pie in the cinemas, but it's the height of the Jerry Springer era and different bits and pieces like that. It's incredible how comparatively chaste TV is now. You know, we went through a real period where there's kind of like almost under Reagan in the 80s and Thatcher in Britain, there's this almost puritanical streak of, you know, there's no such thing as sex, we don't talk about it, and you know, there's obviously a counterculture to that as well, don't get me wrong.
But I think in mainstream TV, like from when I was growing up, it was like anything with any kind of forward thought was like, oh no, this is the way things are, and everything is structured. Do you
remember in the 90s what and again, like it's towards the late 90s that we truly get to this period of excess and kind of trying to shock people and push boundaries and things, because like, do you remember in somewhere in the mid-90s how controversial two women kissing on a soap opera was in the UK? Brookside, wasn't it?
Brookside did it. I think it was, God, I had to have been 10, so it would have been 96, 97ish.
Right.
Now I could be wrong, maybe I was much younger, but I definitely remember, because again, that would have been a conversation I would have had with my mum, because my mum would have watched Brookside, so maybe it could have been earlier, maybe I was a little bit younger.
You just running through, Mum, did you tape it? Why? I was just wondering.
But it's funny you say that, because again, listen to that. Listen to the History of the 90s pod. There was an episode all about kind of TV in America in the 90s and how everything had kind of comedians, and it brought up the Ellen show.
Yeah.
And that was 1997, where she had the big coming out episode. And the show was cancelled by mid-98, which doesn't get talked about, because a lot of people, especially in the southern states at the time, didn't like that she was gay every week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, because you're pushing the boundaries in a lot of ways on TV, but you're only allowed to push them in certain ways.
Yeah, so far, yeah.
So yeah, and Russo and Ferrara encapsulate that culture. Like, they, in hindsight, were very lucky boys to be in that company at that time in the positions they were in, because at no other time would that shit have worked.
No.
And as we're about to find out, in no other context would their shit work. Because, again, whether it was Vince, you know, Cornette's there, Jim Ross is there around them in the booking committee at this point to cut the shit when it goes too far. Now, again, not all of it. There's some, again, we talked about Pepper, we talked about Kendall from Hell, we talked about Good Housekeeping. A lot of this stuff is still getting through. But the stuff that was hitting so well that, you know, the thing we always say on this show, Dave Meltzer's thing, when a company is hot, there's almost nothing you can do to derail it.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're coming to a company that's cold, where, again, as Dave says, there's almost nothing you can do to relight that fire.
Yeah. And I think the more removed we are from the Attitude Era and understanding that it was only under Vince McMahon that you could have had a Vince Russo and an Ed Ferreira work.
Yeah,
I think we do have to kind of say they probably don't get enough credit, but people like Cornette and Ross probably shaped a lot of those stories to fit wrestling. So whereas, Vince would have loved Terry being fucking pregnant and having a miscarriage on live TV,
yeah,
I'm sure there were stories that, JR and Cornette, among others, probably kind of molded to work into around, this is a wrestling show.
Yeah. For sure. You want to hear, speaking of how classy the 90s was?
Go for it.
You want to hear this next one? Talk about, we're trying to give the WWF booking committee some credit, but we just got to remember that this is a scummy company run by scummy people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because WWF Entertainment filed a breach of contract lawsuit on 10-1 against Martha Hart and the estate of Owen Hart, asking for a dismissal of Hart's wrongful death lawsuit against the company, damages in excess of $75,000 plus lawyers' fees for breach of contract, and at worst a change of venue of the Hart lawsuit to Connecticut.
But Dave, why won't Martha let him be in the Hall of Fame?
I know, right? It's almost like they killed his husband and then tried to ruin her life. I don't know. Just spitballing here, hypothetically, allegedly.
But Dave, I want my own Hart figure. Why can't I have an own Hart figure?
It was a week with a lot of different developments as it regarded the death of Owen Hart back on 5/23 in Kansas City, with WCW running Nitro in the same Kemper Arena where Hart fell to his death when a stunt where he'd rappelled from more than 70 feet above the ring went awry in a live pay-per-view event. Bret Hart weeks ago asked company management if he could have a singles match against Chris Benoit on the show as a tribute to his late brother. In Toronto, the final touches were being put on for an A&E biography on Owen Hart as well. The WWFE grounds for the lawsuit are based on Owen Hart's signed contract of July 1, 1990, holding the
shit.
widow and estate of a man
who fucking plunged to his death on your live
contract.
pay-per-view. Like, you fucking pieces of shit. Holy... Oh,
the stipulation in his contract requires that any and all claims, disputes, or other matters in question that arise from or relate to the contract have to be adjudicated in Connecticut. Pamela Fisher, one of Hart's attorneys, responded by the asking for a change of venue due to that contract stipulation by saying it also says that the contract expires upon death. We treat it as null and void because it expired upon his death, and he's obviously dead.
Oh my God.
Like even Owen Hart dying aside, you want to talk about like this whole employees versus independent contractors thing, and it's written into, I would assume, everyone's contract, at least at this time, that if you ever try to sue us, you have to do it in the state that we're incorporated in, so it helps us enormously. In attempting to get the case dismissed outright, WWFE noted that Hart expressly assumed the risks of harm and physical injury within his contract, which stated, Owen Hart acknowledges that participation in activities required by Owen Hart in connection with his performance in a professional wrestling exhibition may be dangerous and may involve a risk of serious bodily injury. Owen Hart knowingly and freely assumes full responsibility for all inherent risks, as well as those due to negligence of WWF, other wrestlers, or otherwise.
What? That's in the contract.
That is word for word from the contract.
Off. You do not get to write off negligence.
I've genuinely,
in a
until I read
contract.
this, until earlier today, I had never read this. I had no idea. This is how, and if we kill you, it's not our fault.
How does a company get away with putting, if we're negligent and you die, your family cannot come after us?
This is the thing, you know what I talk about, the ways in which Vince McMahon is a scumbag. That a conversation between him and Jerry McDevitt and possibly others at some stage in the 80s or 90s, they sat around going, look, we're probably going to kill someone eventually. someone's going to die on our watch and it will definitely be our fault, we should probably make sure that we don't have to give them anything if that happens. Another clause in the same contract stated, Owen Hart hereby releases, waives, and discharges WWF from all liability to Owen Hart and covenants not to sue for any and all loss or damage on account of injury to the person or property or resulting in serious injury to Owen Hart or in Owen Hart's death. So they made him, and presumably everybody else, sign a contract that if you get hurt or die, you can't sue us for any money.
People continue to work for this company. Oh, man.
But they're not employees as well. They're independent contractors.
I would love to know
if more.
If that is in current day contracts. Anybody that works there is a fucking idiot.
We need to get a Brandon Thurston on the line. He's probably seen some contracts more recently than you and I have. The contract with Hart also stated, in regard to asking for punitive damages by Martha Hart, that in no circumstances whatsoever shall either party to this agreement be liable to the other party for any punitive or exemplary damages, and all such damages, whether arising out of the breach of this agreement or otherwise, are expressly waived. Hart signed a contract in 1996 for $250,000 a year downside, and was given a raise to $400,000 per year to return to the company after he had walked out in November 1997 in the wake of the Montreal Screwjob. The legal question is whether the contract signed by Owen Hart applies after death to Martha Hart. Titan continued to send Martha Hart paychecks on Owen's contract for approximately 14 weeks after his death, apparently to show that the contract was still valid. So they weren't doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They were still paying her, because if they stopped paying her, they could be accused of breaching the contract. They weren't looking after her. They were trying to mitigate risk.
I'm so fucking angry. I can't fathom the level of scum.
And also think about the amount of money they're making in 1999 to, on top of trying to dismiss the lawsuit, suing her for $75,000 in damages, plus whatever the lawyer's fees to this point in the lawsuit have been. You would think that even if they thought they were 100% right, that the human thing to do would be to, I don't know,
pay out
not
his contract.
Sue a widow.
Just pay out his contract, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I'm stunned. I knew what they had done was fucking horrible and evil, and the way they treated that woman. But hearing that is just...
My jaw was on the floor reading this.
I consider myself a smart wrestling fan.
Yeah.
I cannot fathom the level of evilness to make a widow sit through that.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. It's evil. It's scum. It's just like, oh god.
Again,
I hate
also,
that.
it's not like
I hate that I've given that company money.
It's also not like this was a death that happened ages ago. Like, she's just buried the guy a few months ago. Like, it was this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can't even wait. You know. Anyway. An interesting tidbit from the tribute show, to stay on Owen but get away from WWF for a minute. Officials in Kansas City were planning to honour Stu Hart at the show as well, and to have a more elaborate ceremony as part of the show. But Bret Hart nixed those plans, feeling he didn't want anything to publicly come off as exploitative. And one thing I will say about the whole thing around this tribute match and stuff like that is, everything Bret has always said about it, it does not sound like the WCW I know in my head. It sounds like they were so cool about it to him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They gave him as much time off as they wanted. They weren't going to dock his pay. You decide if you ever want to wrestle again. You have your tribute match. Do you want us to also tribute your dad? Because Stu had just passed, hadn't he? Or was he...
Oh, I can't remember. No,
Stu had just passed, or he passes after this.
I'll be the first one to knock Eric Bischoff, but as a man and a boss. But Yeah, like all credit to him and to whoever else was making those decisions. The way they treated Brett.
Yeah, even a blind squirrel occasionally finds a nut, and they were fairly sound to him on this. We have more. Thankfully, we're done with WWF exploiting Owen Hart for this week. That's another thing as well. Thank God WCW is dead by 2005, because we had to do all this stuff about Owen, and then we still have to read observers about how WWE exploited Eddie Guerrero's death for profit. I think, like... anyway,
but Dave, they're such a great company.
Dave does a little bit here on page 9 talking about how the overexposure of wrestling on television at the moment is affecting everybody. So if you think about it, like in terms of first run programming, not like clip shows or B shows, you've got 2 hours of Raw every week, 2 hours of SmackDown now every week, 3 hours of Nitro, 2 hours of Thunder, and is ECW one 2 hours?
2 hours Saturday night.
2 hours Saturday night, ECW and TNN.
And then ECW
add to that 3 companies running regular pay-per-views. So he says the ratings are down across the board this week as problems from overexposure became apparent. Unlike in previous weeks, the disappointing numbers didn't exclude WWF. While Raw, which will be the last show of them all to notice effects from overexposure, since in most of the public's eye it is the main show worth seeing, still at strong numbers. Every other program this week drew numbers that would be considered below par, although in the case of SmackDown that wouldn't be noticeable to people just viewing the rating itself and not the circumstances. So you're still talking about Raw pulling a 5.92 with an 8.7 share. So like that's still doing gangbusters, but he's noticing like if you're looking at the trends of absolutely everything else, which I'm not going to like read the observers yourself if you really want to get into the nitty gritty on the numbers on it, but he's just noticing what I think now, if you look at like what we know about 99 and 2000 with the benefit of hindsight 24 years later, is that we are starting to approach the plateau. And that we definitely plateau through 2000, and then we go off a cliff 2001. And it's funny because it almost might have benefited the sustainability of ratings if the 2 other companies had gone bust a year earlier. Because you would have...
Everybody would have just went to WWF.
You would have had... The wrestling audience was bigger. People weren't overexposed for as long to it. There's an argument to be made that like, look, it was worse for the industry, worse for wrestlers in it, but in terms of like, would the degradation of Raw and SmackDown's ratings that we would see throughout the mid 2000s have happened as quickly or as sharply? Who's to say? Yeah, just an interesting thing to note there. And then we'll go through our WCW news briefs here in a while on a fairly harrowing week for the big news stories. Pam Hildebrand was at Nitro on 9/27. They buried the ashes of Brian Hildebrand in the pyro that night, which was what she had requested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Burned the ashes of Brian Hildebrand. So, I guess it's a very uniquely wrestling industry way of, you spread ashes of people in places.
In the ocean or a park.
Devon Storm debuted on Saturday night, taped 9/28, so he lost to Kidman. So Crowbar is coming.
Yes, can't wait.
Hector Garza was cleared to return after a succession of knee problems and worked some house show matches. There's a lot of difference. Now, this is fun. There are a lot of different plans as they pertain to television for the next year. Right. Now, this might be... Because one of the things people often said about... It makes no sense that Russo said about Burnout and then jumped to a show that was actually doing 1 more hour of first-run television. So behind the scenes, there is talk at Turner of making Thunder a 1-hour show and Nitro a 2-hour show. There is an upside and downside to this. It's better as it regards the stress of putting on shows and not having to pad to fill time. It's worse in that cutting back on hour cuts back on ad revenues by the same percentage, which is one of the prime revenue sources of wrestling companies nowadays. The other interesting note is that if Nitro does cut back to 2 hours and it goes from 8 to 10 p.m, it means the second hour of Raw will probably be doing constant 7s or more.
Oof.
In January, the plan is to move Thunder tapings to Tuesday, so the wrestlers that are already on the road Monday won't be going home and coming back, so it'll save on trans. So it's not like for the welfare of wrestlers, it's like this company is starting to hemorrhage money and they need to cut costs. So you put them out on the road once for 2 days back for their weekend house shows, and then their 2 days back to back of TV, and then they go home. If they do that at the same time, more of WCW's top names will be able to appear on both. WCW Saturday Night tapings will move to alternate Wednesdays, although there is still talk of turning that show into a highlights show rather than taping new material, so making it more akin to like a live wire. ICP is now apparently back in with WCW, although that will probably continue to change weekly. Interesting that it wasn't this. I think this was the one that we said was the 927 Thunder. Dave called just about the worst Thunder in history.
That was the one we thought was absolute dog.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, with Hoovy and Psychosis, Hoovy, Psychosis, and La Parca over Silver King and Los Vianos. That was the one that was bad, because there's a Mona and Brandy Alexander match on both weeks. That's what's confusing me.
Okay.
This is the show with Curly Bill on it.
Yeah, the Curly Bill show was bad, wasn't it?
I can't remember it. It's literally the last one we did.
I think the last. Okay, hang on. September 30th, Thunder. UV, Psychosis, La Parca, Los Vianos, Bird and Smiley, Brandy and Mona, Dean Roll, Frankie Lancaster, Knobs and Morris versus the Brits. Biggs. No, that was a good Thunder.
Yeah, well, not according to Dave.
Dave's fucking insane.
Oh man, Terry and Ray Gordy were backstage at Thunder this week.
What?
Yeah.
Hang on, was Ray already working?
Don't know. That's just what there's literally. It's just a one-liner here. I'll tell you one thing. How much would your experience of 1999 Thunder have turned around if fucking Terry Gordy showed up?
That's mad. Now, look, Terry Gordy by 99 is not Terry Gordy, because he'd obviously had the stroke and wasn't all there. But, yeah, I mean, Ray must have been working.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he was back, greasing some palms to get him in there.
Possibly.
All bets may be off, but there was talk of bringing Savage back to feud with Luger, so the women would have a feud. So bringing him back to, like, he's going to feud with Luger to set up a
George and Elizabeth feud.
Fucking main event in any arena, eh?
Probably would have been better than fucking whatever Luger and Savage could have done together.
Nitro Girls are expected to return. You remember there was so much infighting, they've been off TV. They're expected to be back on 10-11. They were pulled for internal disagreements, largely heat with Kimberly. At one point it appeared they would bring in a whole new crew, but instead looks now Kimberly will be off the team. They'll get a new director, and she is going to appear on TV as Paige's manager, which is pretty much how
That's
it plays
what happens,
out. Chavo is off TV with concussion.
Okay, good.
There is talk of doing TV from Europe in 2000 when WCW tours there.
They do.
Another name, which hasn't gotten much pub, that was just added to the booking committee was Bob Mould. He's a writer in the music industry who's a long-time wrestling fan and said to be in particular a New Japan fan. And people were saying that he was becoming an influential force, which may explain why there was some competitive matches, at least by US standards, and actual finishes up and down Nitro this week. So there you go. Nitro, by the way, still beating Raw in the UK.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, right. Enough stalling. Time to get to this show. The second half of the taping from what Dave Meltzer calls the worst Thunder ever. Which, like, I don't know, Dave. I don't know. If you told me he was watching this show,
I mean, that's what I'm starting to think.
oh,
This is the 7.
like
This is the 7. 10
yeah,
show.
but it was 27/9 is the one that he was talking about. Both of them were taped the same night, though. So, like, I don't know, because he would have seen both by the time The Observer comes
true.
out. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, tonight, this is Chattanooga, Tennessee, second half of the taping, Thunder 83, 7th of October 1999, a 1.9 rating, down by 0.2. The trend of the tape shows being down continues. We have 3 title matches tonight, packing the show, you might say. A show that has a Sid match and a Blitzkrieg match in the rare Lee Malone doubler.
Yeah, that won't be happening, bud. But let me tell you, I have fuck all to say.
Well, let's see how fuck all you have to say, because our opening match is Blitzkrieg versus Dean Malenko. I love that the first sign I identified on the crowd during this show said, "I steal pay-per-view."
I tell you what, if there's ever been a sign that I can connect with, it's that one. Sorry, Garrett.
Allegedly.
Hey, look, I was not expecting to see Blitzkrieg this late into 1999.
Yeah.
So that's always nice. It's just a shame that he doesn't have that same electricity at this point.
No.
He already seems to be not what he was. I mean,
do you think it's like he's already not what he was, or he's already got a vibe that they're never going to do anything with him, and he's just like, fuck it?
Probably that as well. He also seems to be fighting his ring gear a lot in this match. He's constantly adjusting his ring gear. It's very off-putting. I don't know.
Like when Ray has a mask that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
And you can always see him adjust the mask. That's what like him with his whole fucking setup here was like.
Dean Malenko, I don't know. I thought this was just a dull fucking match, man.
It just Malenko tonight.
It just did nothing. I know they're
this is, you know, Dean Malenko has been like is a surprising point of contention for some people, I think, in terms of the like, is he as great as people say or not? And I think for every match that we can show that's like, this is why he's great, this is one of the ones you don't want to show the doubters, because this is everything. This was just, it's not entirely his fault, but this is like everything people say about him. Like, this was just boring, uninspired shite. Like,
it was just Malenko being dominant, but also not very compelling.
Yeah, he was dominant, but he wasn't fucking doing anything.
No, and I get the story they're running with now is the Revolution are all aligned now as heels, except for Benoit, who's wrestling Bret Hart. But yeah, they're now embracing Douglas's cheating ways, I believe, is the story they're telling from Nitro.
Yeah, because that was do you remember we read in The Observer that there's been debates about whether they would
put them back together.
They would reel back in what Douglas was doing and keep them all as faces, whether they would have him split from the group as a heel, or whether they would have them all turn heel with him, even though at least 2 of them are quite over as baby faces. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be, yes, they're leaning into them going with Douglas.
Except for Benoit, who's kind of off just doing dream matches.
Yeah. Can I talk about the thing that bugged me the most on this show?
Go for it.
I can't believe that you... Yeah. This is, without question, the worst crowd sweetening I have ever heard in my life. And I used to watch SmackDown on Saturday mornings on Sky One. I know all about crowd sweetening, let me tell you.
It is awful. I mean, I like you. I've seen some bad WWE crowd sweetening where at least the fans are reacting. There's just noise, and that's all it is. It is a constant noise on this show. Yeah.
Hey, here's a tip. If you're a company that thinks you're going to do some crowd sweetening, don't have full lights on in the crowd, because I could see how nobody, like, half the seats were fucking empty for most of this show, and the other half were full of people sitting on their fucking hands, not moving their lips, just staying there somewhere between being awake and asleep.
It's it's ridiculous. Like, it's definitely the worst we've seen in WCW so far. And I don't think it will be the last time we see this, unfortunately.
I hope at least... not that I like crowd tuning, or when I say I don't mind it. I think when it's toned down a bit, I can tune it out. Mm-hmm. But it was so turned up to 11 on this that you can't not notice it. It was exceptionally bad. I hated it.
Malenko wins with the Tiger Driver and Cloverleaf.
Yeah.
Hey Dave, we have a new Cruiserweight champion.
Guys, this is a bad show. Yeah. I had forgotten that Psychosis even had the Cruiserweight title until Nitro, but it doesn't matter because he doesn't anymore. Who's our new Cruiserweight champion, Lee?
Well, Dave, when you think Cruiserweights and, innovative wrestlers, creating the way forward for wrestling going into the new millennium, I mean, who do you think of? Because,
of course, I think of Glenn Gilberti.
Yes, because, of course, you think of the Disco Inferno, yes. Our new WCW Cruiserweight champion, Disco Inferno.
Absolutely horrendous. So I can't believe it.
So let's talk about this timeline. So Lenny won the title in a shock to get over the gay panic angle.
Yeah.
But then Lenny actually did a pretty good job as champion.
Do you know what? Like, when we talked about it a little bit, like, the problem was he was fighting against how they had portrayed him for years on this program. If you look at it in in isolation, like we have,
we enjoyed his title matches.
He did a damn fine job.
Like, we liked his title defenses. They were pretty fun.
He was swimming upstream for the whole thing, but fucking hell, like, he's the most memorable Cruiserweight champion we've had in absolutely ages.
Because there was that period where Ray and Kidman had the title but just did absolutely nothing other than have matches with each other.
They were having good matches, but week to week I couldn't remember who had the belt. And like Lenny, you were just like, it's an actual storyline involving the belt, and he's having pretty good matches.
And it also felt like anybody could beat him. So, like, when he had the Kaz defense, you were like, okay, well, this is obviously where they put the title on Kaz.
Yeah.
I thought he did a pretty good run, or a pretty good job as champion. Then we have, was the Phantom Change was the year before. So Psychosis beats Lenny. And then Psychosis holds the title for literally a cup of coffee. And we then go to Disco.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah. Because of the taping schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if we went back and watched the tapes and Psychosis never appears on Thunder with the belt during that reign.
I don't think he does.
He appears on... Like, he was on last week's.
But he didn't have the belt.
He didn't have the belt.
Because he'd only just lost his mask.
Yeah. So, unless he... Like, did he win it and lose it on the same Nitro? Or
I know there's some Phantom title where he's like champion for less than a day, or it's
that might be it.
It's like
because it would explain why
a -1 title reign or something. It's odd.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, now we're getting fucking Disco.
And like Disco, whatever about if you did this a year ago when they're like trying something with the guy. Like, I think we're all at this point in 99 in agreement that it's just not going to happen for Disco.
Just like the 80s.
He's just not got it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, just like the 80s, Disco ain't going to hit anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. It was all in one night.
Okay.
So, Lenny didn't even lose it. He was stripped because of the Turner issue with Lenny and Lodi.
Okay.
So it was vacated on the October 4th, 1999. It was won by Psychosis on October 4th, 1999. And it was also won by Disco on October 4th, 1999.
Great. Brilliant. Fantastic.
Unbelievable. Yeah. What's funny is, I will say, in a few months, it's going to be vacated again. But we'll get to see that vacating because it gets vacated on a Thunder.
Okay. Looking forward.
I'm not even going to say who it was it vacates, but we actually got to... I forgot. Yeah, it was a Thunder that he won, that Lenny Lane won it on.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad for the poor guy, like, now knowing that it wasn't even like a booking thing where they went, no, right, okay, your time is over, that it was like standards and practices.
Well, I mean,
through a wobbler.
At least you know he's coming back with a new gimmick.
That's what I'm actually just going to see. How long was he, like, because are they proper, like, off TV, like, on gardening leave for a while? And be sad. He had his last match in 2021. Another guy. I'm always surprised when I look up cage matches. I'm like, oh, this guy definitely retired years and years ago.
Yeah, you expect to see like a couple of NWA Wildside matches or something in like 2002.
Yeah. Oh man, he's off TV till next year.
Is it that long?
He doesn't come back until he's not on a TV show until February 2000. He's on a worldwide taping. He doesn't return to one of the main two shows until the 8/2/2000. That's R8/2, so 2/8 as far as the Americans are concerned. 8th of February. Doing a job to the Mamelukes.
I'm unironically looking forward to the Mamelukes.
Hey, look, Big Vito, Johnny the Bull.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Anyway, let's talk about this. Disco has his first title defense. Even though he doesn't have a title and we don't get a Disco entrance because he doesn't have a title. Yeah. So they obviously...
Against...
I was going to say, they obviously didn't plan this in advance, you can tell.
Yeah. And it's against Evan Courageous, who is, as far as I remember, and I was kind of trying to scan ahead in the title history not to spoil things too much, but I'm pretty sure he might be the next champion, because I know in '99 they put the cruiserweight title on Evan Courageous, but he's way too green for it, and I think it's soon.
I think you are right, because if I remember correctly, there's definitely an Evan Courageous cruiserweight title match on Starrcade.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, he's that's actually one of my main points here. Evan is still really raw. Like, he is.
Yeah, this match sucks.
It's bad.
This match sucks.
Yeah,
because it's green wrestler versus bad wrestler, and the match is padded out. Like, I mean, I guess if you're in the situation where it is green wrestler versus bad wrestler, they plan the exact match you should, where it's not about having a fun match, it's about not fucking anything up and hurting each other. But because of that, it's unspeakably bad. It just never gets out of first gear, and even first gear, it's not fun. These two guys are reading from two completely different hymn sheets. They are not. There's no chemistry there whatsoever. And the crowd sweetening, you would swear that you were looking at the Von Erichs in Texas.
If I remember correctly, the Disco just hits the last dance. Doesn't even have a setup for it. He just hits the last dance and it's over.
Last dance out of nowhere. Yeah. We get the first tease of some reflections on the Owen tribute match happening later on the show. We get one of the funniest unironic things ever, which is Berlin backstage shouting at BA in German, and BA nearly fully launches into the "You speak American to me, damn it.
You speak English here in America."
It's the fucking, it's the full, Ricky Bobby and what's your man? I can't think of the character's name in it in Talladega Nights. Ricky Bobby.
What's his name?
It's that full. It's say I love Klaus. It's like, no. Oh, the sweet little pancakes, I love them. It's like, I put a crack in my arm like the crack of the Liberty Bell, son.
Yeah, listen. I do enjoy
this segment was not as good as Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. I'm sorry to say.
No, it wasn't. But if BA's new gimmick is going to be they took our jobs. That's fine by me.
See, now, if this was in 2023 or 2024, they would get him doing a really horrible cover of Rich Men North of Richmond on the fucking on Nitro. They'd have that dude play him to the ring. Oh fuck yeah, that's what they do. I wrote for this match, so it goes to Brad Armstrong to underscore that he's a champion of America. They have Brad Armstrong face Chris Adams, and I wrote my first note here is Brad Armstrong World Police defending America against all foreigners.
Are you trying to say Brad Armstrong was a member of Team America?
I think so. Well, he certainly animates like a puppet sometimes, in terms of his charisma.
Do you think somebody in WCW was making a subtle link between the Germans and the British and the royal family?
Perhaps. Well, that is ascribing way too much credit to them.
I'm just gonna make it my due thing to take as many shots at the royal family as possible.
That you do that. It would explain why so many of them aren't seen in public anymore. They've heard you're coming for them. The USA chant in the crowd might actually be the first thing this crowd actually said on the night. It's the first thing that didn't sound like sweetening since the show started. Tanay reckons, this is really funny, they're like, he used to be gentleman Chris Adams, and now he's hanging out with Steve Regal and Dave Taylor, and they've led him astray. I thought that was really funny, as if he was a good little boy, and the old Bowsies.
The Bowsy Lord Stephen Regal.
Yeah. And look, this was as much as you could get out of Chris Adams this late in his life, after like all the toll that wrestling had taken on his body. This was all right.
It was a good little match. I mean, it was no more, but like
no, good hard hitting. Match made perfect sense. Clear babyface heel, like as much as the jingoism "Hoorah America" makes me sick in my face. It worked, and the thing remains that we always say about Brad Armstrong, in terms of mechanically, he's way more talented than he was ever pushed to be. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, all the charisma in the entire family went to one brother, and he's shite.
And a prick.
He's shite and a prick. He's a shite prick.
And he hates doors.
He does. Loves piles of videotapes
though. Can we talk about how shit of a finish the Russian leg sweep is?
I love the move.
Yes.
The side Russian leg sweep.
It's a great move.
This is known about me.
It's a great move.
This is known about me. Side Russian leg sweeps, particularly rolling ones, and swinging neck breakers are two. You want to throw a chop block in as well? So there's a hat trick of you're getting a bonus star and a half from me if you're using all them in your match, right? It's not a finish. It's not a finish.
It hasn't been a finish since like 1982.
I wouldn't buy it as a finish if Raven was doing it in his rolling ones. I wasn't buying it here. As much as the float over is cool, it doesn't make it so unbelievably devastating. Like, if he did this off a 15-foot ladder through a sheet of plate glass, like Darby Allin went, I'd be like, right, okay, that's a side Russian leg sweep that finishes a match.
Hey, at least Adam's super kick still looks fucking great.
Yeah, I did love as well Chris Adams when he does the big lunging super kick and just ends up tangled in the ropes.
Yes, that was great.
Like a child that's at a jungle gym and gets stuck in the netting when they're halfway up. Do you know when he was like in that moment? He's like, the little girl in The Simpsons who gets stuck on the hoop suspended from the ceiling in the gym.
Oh yeah,
Mrs. Pommelhorst.
Hey,
anyway,
at least we're getting fucking BA for America.
Yeah, BA Baraka's here. He wins. Side Russian leg sweep, as we said. Great move, shite finish. Next match, World Television title, and this would have been. We have just missed the possibility of this being a mad title.
I was going to say, did you forget something?
No, I didn't.
Right.
Well, no, I had, because I'd copied over the Roll of Honor from the wrong thing. So I was like, wait, is he still champion? I was like, I'm pretty sure Sid is champion. I was like, wow, we literally were a couple of weeks off potentially losing the Mad title to Brian Knobbs if WCW were feeling spicy this week. Knobbs, because he can't wrestle worth a fucking lick, just starts immediately shouting at the crowd. The classic signs that you're shite is that you can't even wrestle a wrestler.
And look, I'm not gonna give Knobbs a compliment here. I thought this was a fun little brawl.
Yeah, I mean, and look, Benoit knew there was nothing to be gained from trying to make Brian Knobbs have a Chris Benoit match.
I think the most
So Chris Benoit just had the best damn Brian Knobbs match he possibly could.
I think the most egregious point of this match is when they're brawling up in the crowd, and Benoit, I think he chops Knobbs, and Knobbs falls like 3 steps.
Yeah.
And Tenay goes, "My God, he's fallen 10 or 12 steps."
Yeah. But it's also funny because Knobbs clearly didn't mean to fall down. Like, it was genuine. Like, I think he meant to back up 1 step, and then he actually
He tumbles,
lose his footing.
Yeah.
I will say, Benoit bonking him on the head with the seat of a plastic chair and then pummeling him was very funny. Mm-hmm. Same with him falling down the stairs. Very funny. Benoit brings back into the ring. Jimmy shoves Benoit off the top for a near fall that would have been very silly. Like, he literally just fell off the top ropes and Knobbs tried to pin him.
Yeah.
Heat for Knobbs. Benoit does a corner dodge, German release suplex, second one with a bridge. Jimmy breaks it. The ref bumps because of course he does. Jimmy tries to get away. Benoit catches him, but Knobbs breaks that up. Jimmy accidentally nails Knobbs with the megaphone. Like Jimmy Hart has one spot. I accidentally hit my charges with my megaphone. Headbutt win. I love that in the year of our Lord 1999, Chris Benoit can't just win a match.
No,
He couldn't beat Brian Knobbs without Brian Knobbs' own manager caving his head in with a megaphone.
to beat one of Hulk Hogan's best friends, you need all of the bullshit, Dave.
Yeah, like he needed a tank. He needed to shoot him with artillery to put him down.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Brian Knobbs, 1999. I did love the muttering from Larry, who is no friend of friends of Hogan here, as he mutters, "I want to see him fall down the steps again."
I missed that. That's good.
That's good. Good bit. Larry wasn't bad tonight. Larry was on decent behaviour for the most part. I normally, if I don't notice Larry for most of the night, Larry's had a good night.
If he's not standing out for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And now we have one of our favourite wrestlers, and he's wrestling Silver King. It's Lash LaRue. See what I did there?
I was so excited for this pairing. I thought this was going to be good.
Silver King, 2 weeks running, man.
I tell you, that push
yeah.
is coming. We're just waiting for.
Tenay, at the start of this match, sadly notes the passing of Gorilla Monsoon.
Yes.
Which has just happened this week. And if you have never seen it, the Heenan tribute on Nitro,
the on-camera tribute he does, yeah,
is one of the most heartbreaking things you'll ever see. Almost as heartbreaking. Like, it broke my heart in 1999 watching it on Nitro as a child who didn't really have much. I knew who Gorilla Monsoon was, but I had no emotional investment. I just loved Heenan already at this age. And then it re-broke my heart. I think 6 years later, Heenan gets inducted to the Hall of Fame and breaks down crying, remembering Monsoon during that as well.
I don't know how I feel in hindsight, knowing that they advertised Bobby was going to say, Bobby was going to give this like in memoriam speech.
Yeah.
Because that's what Tenay does here. Tenay says, you tune in Monday and see Bobby Heenan.
I wonder, not to give WCW credit, but I wonder, is it partly they don't want to be seen like they're not doing something for Monsoon? That they're like, we are going to do something, but we want Heenan to do it.
Yeah. Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe,
Like,
yeah.
I wonder, like, I know it could be a little bit of both. It could be I could be giving them way too much credit. But I know if I'm running WCW at the time, Heenan's the guy I want to do the tribute.
And now look, let's be fair, they have just done so well with Brett and the Hart family that let's give them the credit and say, yeah, they weren't advertising looking for views. It was more, look, he's the guy to do it. Yeah.
And look, there's a lot of people I'm sure in WCW who cared about Owen when he died, but there's a lot of people that company currently employs that probably owe their like top level wrestling careers to Monsoon. Monsoon opened the door for a lot of guys who came in there in the 80s.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Jim Ross is the guy now.
Monsoon was
in 1999, but
Monsoon was the fucking co-owner of the company up until 84.
Yep.
Well, 82.
Yeah.
82.
Yeah. So I would imagine this was like, it was important to a lot of people that Monsoon was paid tribute to. Which fair, yeah. And then yeah, just that line always gets me of like, from now on the pearly gates are going to be called the gorilla position. And it just goes again to show how like important a figure he is in history, that like every company up until AEW who now call it Dream, don't they? After Dusty.
Yeah, I think they call it
named
Dream,
after
Dream
Dusty Rhodes,
position.
Yeah. So it's been Gorilla in every company since Gorilla was in that position backstage producing shows. Just to show you how like big of an effect that guy has, even though he was before your generation or mine in terms of like being an actual wrestler.
Yeah, no, look, he was the commentator that I would have grown up with.
He would have already been in his last few years of commentating by the time you were growing up. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Anyway, yes, as I said, 2 weeks of Silver King in a row. We are privileged. What a treat. But I will say that is not an opinion shared by the people of Chattanooga, because this crowd has fucking cleared the fuck out by the time this match starts. To the point where I think these matches might have been out of order, and this was the one that happens in between the two Thunders.
Okay.
I think this might... the only reason I'm saying is if it's two Thunders back to back, I would expect people to go for a piss and get food in between the two. You know, and maybe miss the first match.
Yeah.
And this was by far the most, because already by the next match, more people are back.
Okay.
It makes me think
that.
Maybe this was first. Maybe this was first. Although, again, that's presuming that WCW would think about things like that. Because I know, like, if I was in post-production, I'd be like, I don't want the match with the empty chairs to be the one that people see first. That would be the smart thing to do, which makes me now think that isn't what WCW would do. That's way too smart.
I mean, other than that, I think this is not the match you want to put on first, because I thought this match was a mess. Like, just...
It was.
These were two guys who could not get on the same page at all.
Now, this is a guy who I would be maybe putting Lash against on house shows. I think this is a guy he could learn a good bit from. But ironing out these kinks between two guys who haven't wrestled before, or at least come off like they haven't wrestled before on a TV show without editing it down to make either man look better is probably a poor choice.
Like, just a couple that spring to mind. There's Silver King does a somersault leg drop that just misses. Like, clearly whiffs and Lash sells. There is a drop toe hold attempted by Silver King, I want to say, and Lash LaRue just stops a good 2 feet short of him and has to walk towards him then for Silver King to do the drop toe hold. Shoot drop toe hold. I mean, it's just an absolute mess of a match.
Yeah. I like his finish.
Great.
Because he hasn't settled into the whiplash yet.
Great attack.
Yeah. I do like that. A pioneer, some might say. Then we get another look at Brett. Then we get...
Your highlight.
Lee. I was fucking crying laughing at this. Now, I will say, right, I've been looking at some old WWF segments that are both intentionally and unintentionally comedic, because something we didn't mention at the top of the show was that Virgil has passed since our last recording.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite, it was before I was watching, but one of my favourite old WWF segments of all time is Ted DiBiase going to the jewelers to get the $1 million belt made. And I think it's the second or third segment when he returns to the store. I posted this in the Discord as soon as I watched it. When he returns and unfurls his cape and screams, "I'm here!" And Virgil's just right there with him, just, nodding away. It's great. But I, as you know, have a great love for the perhaps unintentionally funny segments in wrestling. We love dearly the Buff Mirror promo that I recited word for word on this show very early days on Days of Thunder. We both had a great time with the Hoovy shirtless in a cemetery promo when he started going as a single. There are many more to come, obviously culminating in the peak of wrestling as an art form. That's the Wall Brother, Hey Wall, which we're under a year away. The funeral of Lex Luger. This is fucking incredible television. The least subtle company on earth decides to tell you that Lex Luger's old gimmick is dead by having a funeral for it.
Yep.
And then the force ghost of Lex standing over his own grave. This is so fucking good. And then there's a single female mourner. Not like, if you're Lex, you should be packing out this graveyard with women dressed in black, so upset that Lex Luger is dead. But you have one woman who is clearly fucking Elizabeth. It's clearly fucking Elizabeth. And she lifts up the veil to reveal it's Elizabeth in what's supposed to be this big fucking mic drop moment. And it's exactly who you think it's supposed to be. Like, why couldn't it have been lift the thing? It's Kimberly. Oh, like... lift the veil. It's Sting. Like,
well, they're about to get to that, so don't fucking wish that too much.
Yeah. It fucking ruled. The lightning effect is so fucking funny. The blurry zoom in on his muscles as he's the total package. I'm all in. I'm all in on this. It's so fucking stupid. Like, I have not enjoyed Lex really at all this whole run.
No.
But now the unintentionally funny, like, we're going back to, like, it's the narcissist 2.0 is what the total package gimmick is. It's look at me muscles, like I'm shite but I'm ripped, but
do you know what
this is funny?
Do you know what's the funniest thing about the gimmick? Is he wears the tracksuit 90% of the time.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So it's a look at me.
He essentially look at my muscles, but he's essentially dressed as like one of the cast of Trailer Park Boys for the majority. Like, except fucking like Julian is way more ripped than him, and at least wears a form-fitting T-shirt.
I'm glad you're into
that. That's what you need. That's actually what you need. So like in this scenario, if he's Julian, what you need is like a Mr. Leahy. Like, you need somebody that's an antagonist to Lex that also thinks he's really sexy when he's had a few too many. That's what you need. Like the Dean Pelton to his Jeff Winger, to use a Community comparison. That's what you need. So he's like, even his shadow. That's what you need.
I'm glad you're into the total package. Or just the total repackage, I think we should call it.
This segment was tremendous television. It was so fucking good. I loved it. Next up, this was like, I thought I got hit in the fucking head with a bat. One, because I enjoyed a Lex Luger segment, and two, this next match, names out of a fucking hat, as we had Dale Torborg,
MVP
Dale Torborg, Montel Vontavious Porter Dale Torborg, MVP DT, versus the Maestro.
Yep.
Both men making a Thunder debut in terms of wrestling. Wolfpack Knuckleball Schwartz is what I described Dale Torborg as looking like.
Okay, let's talk about that first.
What the fuck?
I am not a baseball fan. That may shock you, Dave.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen...
You get lashed on beer and eat a load of pretzels, but that's just you down the park on a Saturday. Like that's not sports related at all.
I have never seen a blood-coloured baseball.
This was like a guy who really tried hard to get cast in the Warriors, and they just said, "Man, go home. You're embarrassing yourself."
Yeah, I mean, it's like they even have to. I think it's today that says, "Oh yeah, the black lines are like the stitching on a baseball on his face."
Yeah, this is the TV debut of Gorgeous George, or not Gorgeous George. Sorry. The Maestro.
Yes.
Who is, in fact, the grandnephew of Gorgeous George.
Who had the name Gorgeous George.
Yes. He has the rights to it, but he is actually related to Gorgeous George. Yes. It's his TV debut, and it's Dale Torborg's 4th wrestling match ever. And it does seem like that.
Yes, it does.
The Maestro would later be joined by a manager.
Yes.
Do you remember the manager's name?
Paisley.
And do you remember who the manager is?
It's Paisley. No?
Symphony.
Oh. So who's...
And do you know who Symphony was?
Paisley was the artist, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that was Charmel.
Mm-hmm.
So who's Maestro? Or who's
Symphony?
Who is Symphony?
You may know Symphony by another name. Ryan Shamrock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think very soon after this, you will see Symphony show up. I can't quite remember.
I have a question about the Maestro. So, where was he when they were casting Ric Flair in the Iron Claw?
Well, the thing is, like, Maestro wrestled last year. He has been known latterly as either Mstro, M-S-T-R-O, or the Stro.
The Stro. I've definitely heard of the Stro. Yes, I remember the Stro.
Do you know where he wrestled last?
Go for it.
Because you will not guess it. He wrestled last year in Zona 23.
No, he didn't.
He fucking did.
The nephew, the great nephew of Gorgeous George, wrestled in the junkyard.
Yes. Which you would think, having spent the 90s in WCW, he would learn a lot about why you shouldn't wrestle in junkyards, because it killed half the roster.
Holy shit.
But anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Much more amazing than this match was.
Yeah. Look, I don't think Maestro was outright bad, and he'd been around for a few years, just not in this gimmick. I think he'd done like TV jobs as early as 94, I think. Okay. He'd been in and out around WCW getting like, per date stuff with them. But this is his first like run with a gimmick on TV.
That he got.
I don't think he was horrible.
Well, I mean, he only got to run on TV because Savage bought the name Gorgeous George off him.
Yes, yeah. I don't think he's the worst wrestler on this roster by any stretch, and I do think he's trying his best with Dale Torborg here. But one of the things we will learn over the next year or so is that Dale Torborg is an all-time terrible wrestler.
I was just going to say, I thought you were going to, tie off that comment with Dale Torborg is the worst wrestler on this roster.
He might be. It's a fucking competitive field if you were to look at the whole 1999 roster. Like, we did just talk about Brian Knobbs.
Yeah, fair.
Like, the thing that surprised me the most about this is like, because Dale Torborg is imminently repackaged.
Yes.
Like, the repackaging is soon. So the thing that shocked me the most is that Dale Torborg fucking won this match. With like a fucking Cobra Clutch Uranagi situation.
No, it was a rock bottom. It was a Uranagi.
But he had
No, I think it just took him a minute to hook him.
Oh, he's just shite.
Shit,
yeah. He wasn't actually
because that is the finish he would use as the demon.
Yeah. It's more recognizably a rock bottom by then, though. That's why I was just like, oh, he's trying to.
No, I think he
here,
just couldn't.
He's just shit. I was just very surprised that the fucking baseball fury here fucking got the win. Almost as surprised I was by the next match that saw the Filthy Animals against Lee Malone's favourite tag team on God's Green, Disorderly Conduct.
Disorderly Conduct getting a fucking semi-main on Thunder.
Yeah, I wrote, holy shit, they're back. Why are they back?
You say that.
That wasn't bad.
This was the best they've ever looked.
Do you know what's sad? Might have been the best match on the show.
Oh, it was. I don't think there's any question of that. I think Gray and Kidman have cooled way the fuck off.
Oh man, yeah, that was now again with the crowd suite, you can't tell. It would be very WCW that like they're like, oh, no one's over on the show with the crowd suite and everybody, so let's turn down the volume during theirs to balance it out nicely.
I know, I'm not talking about what the crowd think. I mean what I think.
Oh yeah, well yeah. And in terms of positioning as well, like throwaway tag against fucking Tough Tom and Salty Sally here.
It's so sad to see how they've, like, we were saying at the start of '99 they could have done something with Ray here, and they just didn't, and it's really sad.
And look, we already said they could have done something with Kidman. Do you know what I mean? And they have flirted with doing something with both of them. Like, let's not forget, we're still in the same calendar year where Ray beat Nash.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and this is where we're back to. What a fucking waste. Like, in hindsight now, I would have advocated for fucking Nash to squash him for all they fucking did.
Well, I mean, look, Nash only lost that match for political reasons, so.
What? Our woke king?
If only he could have made it to Revolution Day, if only.
If only, eh? Oh, by the way, Larry as well, always glasses half full, predicting both of the Filthy Animals will be dead by 35 is great.
What?
Yeah, one of them does like a fairly basic flip and he goes, these guys at their high risk moves are going to be dead by 35. I was like, cool. I don't know why my Larry sounds like me trying to do Norm.
All the stars.
All the stars are here.
I did like that the Kidman and Ray won with their actual finisher, the assisted Hurricane Rana. Yeah. They actually trusted that.
Sorry, I believe it was settled Days of Thunder law that this is to be referred to as the alley-oop Hurricane Rana.
The alley-oop Rana. They obviously trusted Salty Sally more than they trusted Curdy Bill the previous week.
Yeah. If our podcast is to have a legacy, it will be more people in this day and age talking about the alley-oop.
You mean Big Show's alley-oop?
Of course.
Yes.
The innovator of the alley-oop, as they call him. I'd buy that t-shirt. No more BS on the front. Innovator of the alley-oop on the back. And it's just like a picture of him like yeeting a cunt over a car or something.
I really want somebody to, on an AEW pay-per-view now, to hit the alley-oop. Dave will turn into that Leonardo DiCaprio Wolf of Wall Street gimmick.
Right, okay, I just realized, right, so we're on the VOW feed right now,
okay.
Right? We know for a fact, without naming names, that there are wrestlers that listen to this program. Please, one of you, either hit an alley-oop on a show and let us know.
Shout out.
Or if you want to be really funny, convince someone else to do an alley-oop and say, I'll get over big time, brother. And then tell us you did it.
Dave.
You know exactly the person I have in my head. Don't say it. I'm making my life's work.
If
I will die a happy man if I bring the alley-oop back.
if I see an alley-oop. Oh my god. If I see an alley-oop on WrestleMania weekend. Oh my god.
I just like listening to it like a post WrestleMania weekend wrap up podcast. And it goes, I think this guy did a fucking alley oop in this match.
Oh my god. Somebody, please bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back. It's 2024. We're bringing back the alley oop. No one listened to me on the Raven Russian leg sweep. If anyone's ever going to listen to me and do a spot in a match because of us, please, alley-oop.
But please,
just do it one time.
Make sure you convince somebody else to do it. Don't do it
Or
yourself.
sister. I'm all about gender equality. Do you know what? Women's wrestling has long since been in need of an alley-oop.
Lacked an alley-oop.
And the thing about women's wrestling that gives it a benefit over men's wrestling is that you could literally have a women's wrestler called alley-oop. Which, if that isn't a 12th entrant in a clusterfuck gimmick...
Please stop.
I'll tell you what, ideas like this, Lee, will be offered a gimmick show at one of these weekends.
Sure.
Anyway, what were we talking about? WCW?
Yeah, I think so. Kidman and Ray beat Disorderly Conduct.
Yeah. Grant. No brother. Alley-oop Rana. The lads have won. Right, okay. Then we get... God, it's such a fucking neck-breaking change of pace here to go from this to a very somber reflection on the Owen Hart tribute match, because... you see clips of it, you see Brett talking about it. It's a nice little bit they did, and essentially it's Brett kind of going, you know, trying to dispel the bitter Brett stuff and talking about how, look, I love Kansas, great wrestling history. It is the arena where he died, but I don't hold any ill will against the people of Kansas. I was happy to be there, happy to do the match there. Nice little segment, I think.
I thought Brett had a very powerful line of... He goes, what's next for Bret Hart? And he said, what's next is a difference. He said, you're going to get a different Bret Hart.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could think is how they not only fucked him up when they brought him in, they fucked him up again.
Yep, because Brad's coming back.
Twice,
but he ain't back for long.
Twice they could have had this man as a red-hot babyface. Mm-hmm. And they just didn't.
Yep. Anyway, let's go to Lee Malone Corner, because your other fave, your show is bookended by faves. Of course, I'm referring to Stevie Ray.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray competing for the US title against one Sidley Vicious.
The US and martial arts division title.
Mm-hmm.
I have no notes because this match was fucking horrendous.
It was. Did you... One thing I noticed about it is that clearly a lot of people like Stevie. Because, I mean, this guy just keeps getting booked on TV in spite of how bad he is. But he got an awful lot of a Sid match. This current Sid run, he is blowing through people up and down the card, and they gave him a lot.
I do have that note that he did slam Sid a couple of times. He like Sid was knocked off his feet more than you would expect for a TV, match. Mm-hmm. But I think that goes back to, Stevie and Booker were there in early 90s WCW with Sid. Yeah. They would obviously be familiar with each other going back, and I think Stevie was probably a very popular guy. Like, we know Booker was. Everyone seemed to love Booker. Yeah. And unless Stevie is like an absolute arsehole, which I've never heard anything bad.
No. No. Apart from he's a bad wrestler, I've never heard anything with bad things to say about Stevie Ray.
So, yeah, look, I get why people would have wanted to do their best for Stevie. It's just unfortunate that literally as soon as this match begins, Rick Steiner comes out.
Yeah. What's funny is, this was a bad match, but I also, in my very ever the optimist sort of way, this might be the best Stevie singles match we've seen so far at the same time. Like, those two things can be true. And I think, even though I'm watching him and his babyface performance, and I'm like, this is clearly like an imitation of the Booker T babyface match, I still think, now we're grading hugely on a curve here because of the quality of Stevie Ray as a wrestler. I think for what he's capable of, he didn't do the worst job I've seen.
I'd have to think back, and I'd have to go through notes and stuff, but there has to have been like a better kind of Stevie Ray squash when he was getting his push in 98.
Man, because like so many of his singles matches we were talking about were like 30 seconds, then Vincent throws the slapjack at him, and he just bops them and wins. Like, I think it might be his best singles match so far.
Can we talk about how shit this fucking Steiner and Rick and Charles Robinson stuff is?
It's horrible. It's actually like it's actively anchoring down Sid's hot push, like
Sid,
because he's still winning every match, but like, again, are you noticing reactions being a bit more muted the last while? Even though he's still being pushed towards Goldberg, and he still hasn't lost.
It's just it's killing Sid.
It's that, and they're letting him speak for too long.
yeah.
Like that, we have registered that as an issue.
Now look, we've also, we've said it. They've tried to make Thunder the Sid show. It's very obvious since Sid came back that he has been the star of the show.
Yeah, I mean, how many of these has he main evented since he came back? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's usually the last person we see.
But it's just such a fucking... It's such a downer that Sid needs Rick Steiner to interfere for a solid 3 or 4 minutes to beat Stevie Ray.
Yeah. Something I can do as well without in Sid matches, by the way, is him doing the kick to the gut. He's never done that where it doesn't look... Now, in fairness to him, he's clearly trying to not hurt somebody.
Yes.
But it comes off as the most feather-light kick, like he's rubbing it because you have a sore tummy kind of kick.
He's always done it that way, though. It's just, that's the way...
Yeah, but I know it's the way he is, but it's just, I need to voice my exasperation with it now, having watched it for a few months running. It just looks like shit.
But then you see him drop people on their heads with the powerbomb, and it's kind of,
Yeah, that rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'm fickle. I'll admit it.
I like Steiner coming in with the bulldog while Charles Robinson ties his lace, and not even a good assisted powerbomb, like a really shitty looking powerbomb.
Yeah,
for the finish. It's just it's maddening. But look, I'm waiting for us to get to this Goldberg Sid match.
Yeah. Well, we're at 128-0 now. And only a couple of weeks to go till the pay-per-view. So, we're getting there, slowly but surely. Lee, that's going to do it for episode 83 of Thunder. So, before we get the hell out of here, give us your overall thoughts, your winners and losers.
A really, really, really bad episode of Thunder. It's one of those things where the more we see them, the more these taped Thunders they drain you in a way that they they shouldn't, but they just do. They're just so bad, and the crowds are so fucking dead. And obviously,
you understand from a money standpoint why they're doing them taped, but they distinctly don't even try with the second one.
That's the problem. It's just, you can tell that the wrestlers don't care, and if the wrestlers don't care, why should the crowd care? And
do you know what? You can tape them all you want, but us coming back to them 25 years later, if they're good, we shouldn't be able to tell which ones are taped and which ones aren't. And I know before I even look it up.
Yeah, you can tell from the intro. Like, simple little things like not seeing the announcers on camera. Like, it's all these simple little production stuff. Obviously, this is the worst show we've seen thus far with regards to the sweetening.
Mm-hmm.
But
one of the worst I've ever remember in my life.
I genuinely don't think there's anybody that I'd call a winner on this show. I struggle looking through the matches to say that anybody came out better because of being on this show. Losers, I'm going to say Ray and Kidman just because I'm so down on them right now.
Yeah, fair. Right, okay, last thing. The finish counter brought to you by Ludwig Borger. There was 8 matches on this show, unbelievably. 7 clean finishes, even more unbelievably. And 1 interference leading directly to a finish. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. We'll be back behind the paywall next week. Back free feed 2 weeks from now. Thank you all very much for listening. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. To keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us, you can follow us on Twitter at WCW ThunderPod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at the Day to Dave on Twitter and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts than you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.